That radio chick Cheryl Lee here. Welcome to the Still Rocking It podcast, where we'll have music news and interviews with some of our favourite Australian musicians and artists. We caught up for a Zoom room chat with energetic guitarist from the Screaming Jets, Jimi the Human Hocking. We hear about his early TV career, how he didn't join the Angels and he did join the Angels, his solo career, and what's coming up next for the Screaming Jets. To catch up on podcasts from other favourite artists or for more Radio Chick stuff, simply go to thatradiochick.com.au. I'd like to welcome into the Zoom room today James Kevin Hocking. Jimi, welcome to the show.
Hi, Cheryl. Nice to be here. James. No one calls me James except my mother when I'm in trouble.
When you've been naughty.
Yeah, it's my naughty name.
Also known as Jimi the Human, member of the Screaming Jets, which we've got some exciting news to talk about in a minute, but I'm wondering if we can go back a little bit first, if that's okay.
Sure.
I know you're from a musical family. When did you decide that the guitar was your thing?
Well, it's a funny thing. My dad was a piano player, so we all got marched off to piano lessons when we were very small. And my mum was a light opera singer. So we had a very diverse environment with music, which actually turned out to be a very healthy thing, of course. And we all had piano lessons. We all enjoyed the piano, but it was old-fashioned. We had a very strict teacher. Dad didn't teach us. Like, we went off some old lady with a ruler who would bang us over the knuckles when we played a wrong note. It was terrible. After a while, I saw the Beatles on TV. It was already a rerun by then, I guess, but Hard Day's Night was on TV, I remember. And that was the start of me thinking, I want to do that. I want to play the guitar. I don't even remember the real genesis of it, but my parents told me when I was little I started making guitars out of cornflake boxes and rubber bands across a hole. So, I must have been 4 or 5 years old, when that happened. I got my first guitar at 6, so just a classical guitar, and banged away on that with no idea for the longest time, and then kind of just started learning chords from some of Dad's friends who would come around for barbecues, actually. That was the start.
It obviously stood you in very good stead. And apart from the current band, the list of bands that you've been in as long as your arm.
Unemployable otherwise, you see. No one will have me do another job.
I read that you got your first acoustic guitar as a Christmas present, and then you must have been passionate about it because you taught yourself.
Yeah. Let's not think too highly. It didn't mean I was any good. I was just teaching myself how to hold it, how to, some rudimentary chords. It was actually a guy called Mike Grabowski who was a bass player. You might have heard of Paul Grabowski, who was playing a lot of piano on TV. His brother Mike, sadly not with us anymore, was a good friend of my dad's, and he was a bassist and taught me my first real chords, So I learned these 3 chords, and straight away that unlocked the vault to play 100 pop songs, so that was the start. But I just sing and play with a guitar in my room. That was how I did it. So that was the early days.
And the rest is history.
Here I am, locked in my room right now.
Still doing it 40 years later.
You are listening to Still Rocking It, the podcast with Cheryl Lee.
Let's have a song, shall we? One written by Dave Gleason and Jimi Hocking, Razor from one of my favourite Screaming Jets album, Chrome. Back to speak more to Jimi shortly.
I just bought myself a razor I can't use till I come down. Stuck in the government building on the nothing side of town. Chucking money to the biggest on dirty sheets on stolen ground. Quaking with the knowledge that my time has come around. He's not preaching to the people, he's just screaming at the world. He ain't hard like alabaster, no, he breaks like a little girl. Under fire from the ramparts, a silent thief did not think twice. Stealing money from the devil to buy my way into paradise. And the road goes on and on and on and on, like the words of a protest song. looking for a sign. Pull the lever, drop that trapdoor, it's the governor on the line. Counter to my intuition, I chose the left and not the right. I cannot be held responsible when all hell breaks loose tonight. The road just goes on and on, just like the words of a protest song. And still the war rages on until the last blood is I can't use till I come down. Stuck in the government building on the nothing side of town.
You did some stuff for TV, like themes for telemovies.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, I mean, I was banging around in kind of terrible school bands, even in the late 70s. And, the first band that got any recognition would have been 84. So I was playing in garage bands and punk kind of inspired bands. But because my dad worked for the ABC, we got the inside word about a lot of that stuff. So once again, I was extremely fortunate. And there was a show on, let me think, I think it was Fame and Misfortune was one of the programs at the ABC. No, I beg your pardon. It was called Sweet and Sour. Sweet and Sour was a show where for the first time in the ABC's history, I believe, they got outside songwriters to write for that program. I think Billy Miller and people who were considered modern rock musicians at the time, they did some writing for the ABC because normally it would all be in-house. It went so well for them that they had this idea that they had a movie called Emerging. They thought they would approach a few young rock bands to write some music for this movie. And I think there was a couple of bands got approached and my band at the time got the gig. So we were not experienced in the studio or anything particularly. And this was the old days when you didn't have to be. You could just go in there and there's an engineer and they'd all just roll tape for you. That was the start of a period where I wrote songs for that movie. We adapted some of the songs I was already playing in the band. The band was called the Astro Boys. Then I actually wrote for a TV show called Fame and Misfortune, which is a musically based kids series. And then I did things like late night news and stuff like that, which I played sessions for the ABC, which also then brought me to the early Degeneration series, which became the Working Dog Guys. They started on the ABC and I did a lot of the early sessions for their TV show.
So a great apprenticeship, a great learning curve, I imagine.
Absolutely. And I had to play a lot of different things. It was rock-based because that was what they were doing. They did parodies of Midnight Oil songs and made-up bands. And I remember there was WANK News theme that I had to come up with. And so it was pretty fun to do. But like I say, it was in the old days before home recording or anything like that was a thing. I didn't have a 4-track recorder or anything. So I really had to kind of, not that I was a comprehensive, like a good writer or anything, but I had to chart out ideas and stuff like that because there was no other medium, available at the time. I didn't have any money, that's for sure. So it was a different world for recording sessions than it is now.
Still Rocking It podcast with that radio chick, Cheryl Lee. Let's have a couple of quick tidbits just to remind us how funny Degeneration were. Nobody was sacred. Everybody was fair game. Here's cricketer David Boon, once in a lifetime talking heads.
You may tell yourself, this is not my beautiful house. You may tell yourself, this is not my beautiful wife. Letting the days go by, let the water hold me down. Letting the days go by, water flowing under rock into the blue again. After the money's gone, once in a lifetime, water flowing underground.
Another cricketer and TV personality, Mike Whitney, with Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You.
And I hope you have all you dreamed of, and I wish for you joy and happiness, but above all this I wish you love, and I
And you've got to love a politician with a sense of humour. Former Premier of Victoria, Joan Kirner, doing Joan Jett. I love rock and roll.
I saw him dancing there by the record machine. I knew he must have been about 17. He was going strong, playing my favourite song. I could tell it wouldn't be long till he was with me, yeah, me. And I could tell it wouldn't be long till he was with me, yeah, me. And I love rock and roll. Put another dime in the jukebox, baby. I love rock and roll. So come and take the time and dance with me.
You've probably been asked this question 1,000 times, and I'm sorry, I'm still going to ask it again. Where did Jimi the Human come from?
It's incredible that it got legs at all, because in the mid-'80s I was, going broke that quick. It wasn't funny. And I had this band, the Astros. We were like a Frank Zappa meets Devo meets, Midnight Oil inspired band. Everybody loved us in the industry, but we couldn't get arrested by the public. It was just like not very commercial. But it was a great band. And so I started playing folk clubs. Now, what that means is just cafes that had an acoustic guitar player in the background. And any time you pulled out an acoustic guitar in 1985, you were called a folk musician, irrespective of what you were playing. So I kind of came into that scene through a great man called Ricky Vengeance, who sort of encouraged me to do that. I had no real concept of selling myself. You were just some guy in the corner. So I started doing these acoustic shows, and I would just put on their blackboard, because I was nobody, just some guy with a guitar. I was an incidental part of the night if you were going to a cafe. So they just put Jimi on the blackboard. And the owner of the cafe is like, you can't be Jimi, you need to be something else. So I started all these different concepts. I was Jimi the guitarist, Jimi the skateboarder, Jimi the idiot, really. And then one night at this gig at Fat Bob's Cafe in South Caulfield, I was talking about playing music for everybody. Like, it didn't have to be folk, it didn't have to be blues, it could be whatever, it could be just human music for humans. And I wrote on the blackboard the next time I came, Jimi the Human. That was the first idea. And then a couple of years later, I got on stage with the Angels. That's another sort of part of the story. The Live Line tour, Bob Spencer broke his arm. The short version is I got recruited to take his place for the tour. And I told Doc this story just in passing as we were driving around together. And he loved it. He said to me, oh, that should be your stage name. It's a great stage name. I'm like, yeah, I don't know if it's a stage name. It's kind of a joke, He loved it, and he introduced me to everybody on stage every night as Jimi the Human.
Jimi the Human.
And by the end of the tour, it was a thing. So that's how it started.
We can thank Doc for Jimi the Human.
In a way, it wasn't like I resisted heavily, but I just didn't see it. I was kind of like, it was just some gag that I came up with. I just didn't think it was going to be a thing, But, he pushed the case.
How did Bob Spencer break his arm running into Doc? Do you know?
You need to ask Bob this, but what I know of it is, obviously I wasn't there like the night before I came on board, they had this bit of shtick they were doing on stage where Bob would play the guitar and then Doc would come up with the microphone and sing louder and try and be louder than Bob, then he would try and be louder. So they were doing this bit of stagecraft, And it ended up where the crew would drag out a quad box, a speaker box, and Bob would jump up on top of it and kind of win this duel. But the speaker box had no speakers in it. It was just a prop that they were using from somewhere. So it wasn't very heavy. Bob jumped on top of the box. It was like second night in, and Doc got enthusiastic. He was an enthusiastic guy. And he came over and kicked the box, thinking it had some weight in it, so it wouldn't matter. But it didn't. So as he kicked on the top of the box, it scissored, kind of Bob fell forward and it fell back. Bob landed on his face on top of the guitar and broke his wrist and the guitar underneath him. So when I was called and I ended up going to the hotel, I didn't know them, not really. It was a very sad scene. It was not like coming into this band, having a great experience from night one. Everybody was really, oh, this is really bad,
Because you were only going to fill in for the one night and then they were going to cancel the rest of the tour. But they must have thought you were a bit all right, this work experience guy, because they kept you for the whole rest of the Australian tour.
I remember the moment because it was a very long gig. It was in the days when, Bruce Springsteen and all these people were doing long sets, and the Angels decided to do a 3-set concert. So, normal set would be about an hour and a quarter, an hour and 20. These were 3 45 minutes, the history of the band thus far. I don't mind telling you, I knew the old stuff because I was a fan, of course. I was a young guitar player in Australia. But in the middle, there was some songs in the middle from a couple of albums I wasn't that au fait with, Watch the Red, that kind of period. And then I did the new stuff, So I guess the short version is that I did well enough Now, I'm a good improviser. You know, I don't mind saying it's kind of been my bread and butter. I'm good at just getting up and playing. It's a skill I even teach now. I've been doing lessons today. So I remember Brent Eccles saying to me, you better be good, because this is not, we haven't got time to bullshit around here, and he was trying to pull the heavy on me. And I said, because I was young and cocky, and I said, I am, and Brent said that was the moment he knew we'd be friends, because it was just like giving it back, I came off stage after this. It was at the Palais Theatre in Melbourne. It was a big theatre show, and there were some tense moments, make no mistake, but it was fine. And Rick, looked around the band and looked at me and said, well, that went way better than I expected. Maybe we don't cancel his tour at all. And nobody really went, yeah, hooray. It was just kind of like, yeah, maybe. So, and that was kind of it. That was as congratulatory as it was.
Realistically, you saved that tour.
Well, that's right. I mean, it was a big break for me. I'm well aware that it put me on the map, because the next thing that happened was I did the Jimi the Human thing. I had a minor record deal, and we had a successful record. So it was kind of set me in motion. They were very gracious about it. They said, you saved the tour. Like, they were heavily invested financially in this tour. I recall that I just bought a really expensive guitar, which I really couldn't afford. So the tour came along, and they put me on the band wage and everything. Like, they really looked after me. So I paid off this guitar and an expensive Paul Reed Smith. They were brand new at the time. And at the very end of the tour, I didn't even expect anything, but they gave me like a bonus, and because I was 24, I just went straight down to the guitar shop and bought something else. So I was,
Of course you did. And it's sort of serendipitous that you ended up playing in the Jets with Dave, who ended up playing with the Angels.
You are listening to Still Rocking It, the podcast with Cheryl Lee.
Let's have a real quick Angels song with Doc out the front, take a long line, and then back to speak some more with Jimi the Human. Is it good to have your singer back with you full time again?
Well, it is, but the Angels and especially me and Dave, we're a circle of friends with those guys. We have been for a long time. The Angels and the Jets have done many tours together over the years, the bar-by ball tours and things like that. We did heaps of shows together. So it's not uncommon for us to be hanging out if we're on a big concert bill. I was in Mount Isa on the weekend with the Jets. The Angels were on the bill the following night. John got there early. So John and Sam and Nick and myself all had dinner. That's normal for us. And it's kind of how Dave ended up in the band anyway.
Like a family.
We kind of are. And when you've got something going on in your band or your workplace, the first place you look is within your own connections, and that's, that makes total sense. That's what you do, because people's ability is one thing, but you're going to have to work with them and travel with them and all that stuff. So,
and like them a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's so important, let's face it. Ironically, there's a subcategory story to my Angels experience, because in the time when I was playing in that band, I mentioned the experimental band, the Astros, I got a phone call from Dirty Pool Management in Sydney saying that the Angels were looking for a guitar player and would I come to Sydney to audition. I was young, and this is before Bob had joined the band. And believe it or not, because I grew up in the musical household and I had no money, I said no. I said, I'm not going to Sydney to audition for a band that will probably pick somebody that they know to play in the band. So it turns out of say, I don't know how many, let's say 10 people got asked about this. I'm just making that up. But I do know I was the only person who didn't show up. So when Brent Eccles, then the drummer, was ringing around studios in Melbourne to find a replacement for the single night they were doing, Paul Koski, who's an engineer down here, a great producer too, he said Jimi Hocking would be able to do it. And Eccles remembered my name as the only guy that didn't show for the audition. He's like, that's that guy. So in a weird way, that was another part of how I came into the gig.
Still Rocking It podcast with that radio chick, Cheryl Lee. Okay, here's one for you from the Screaming Jets Got You Covered album. Here's them doing an Angels song, Shadow Boxer. And then back to speak to Jimmy about the Jets. Forward. So you joined the Jets in 94, did 2 albums with them, left a few years later. Can I ask why you left?
Yeah, well, the thing about the Jets was it was actually 93 that I came into the band, and Aaron Chug asked me if I would do 3 weeks with the band because the original guitar player, Richie, had got very ill and he wanted to take some time off. So I was in Sydney. I ended up saying yes. I didn't really think I was going to be a match made in heaven for the band. I just didn't think I was the right kind of personality, maybe. But within a very short period of time, that was not the case. And we all became friends quickly, but especially David and I, we realised we had a very similar sense of humour. We spent 2 days reciting Monty Python to each other in the Tarago. One of those connections.
Flesh wound.
Exactly right. And that was how it went. You know, you drive all those miles and you get to know very quickly if you're going to hit it off with somebody. And David often says, we started mucking around on the second day and we've been mucking around for 30 years. So it was always an ad hoc thing. It was like, well, Richie's not coming back. We've got another tour. So will you do that? So yes. So we got an album to do. What about we do that? Okay. I did hit a point where, well, how can I say this? It wasn't all smooth sailing politically in the band. And at one point I was like, well, it is your band, you guys. You know, I came into it like this, and here it is 5 years later, I'm still in the band. And I had stresses at home. I was in a difficult marriage. That was obviously going down the gurgler, and I had a lot of stuff going on. So I kind of left the band impulsively. In a way, I probably shouldn't have, you know, but it was an impulsive moment. And I was like, okay, that's it. I'm going to go and do something else. All that happened was I went home, I got an ass kicked for getting divorced, and then I lost all my money, and
Typical rock and roll story.
It was a bit of a disaster. I did my black belt grading, which I've been trying to do for years, and then I started writing for a new project that turned into a blues idea, and I started in the blues scene. That was kind of the period that happened. So then I had an opening in New York, and I started going to New York and started doing gigs over there, and then a new chapter happened for about 8 or 9 years.
Very good segue into the blues chapter, because I wanted to congratulate you in 2005 in Memphis, Tennessee, when you won the solo duo category.
That's right.
In a big stage.
It was a big deal, and I think that Australians didn't or don't realise how big a deal it was. And it's now been won by 3 Australians. Fiona Boyes won it, I think, a couple of years just before I did. Then I came along and did it in 2005. And this year, Frank Sultana has won it, another Australian musician. And we are the only non-Americans to win anything in that contest. And just to put into perspective, when I arrived there, there's hundreds of entrants. There's like 2,000 people there trying to get this thing going. It runs over 4 or 5 nights. There's so many people to play through. So when you win it, they call you the unsigned blues performer of the year. And you do major festivals, TV in America.
It is a big deal.
I didn't expect to win it. I was over there, kind of like I'd won it in Australia. That's how you get to go. So you got to win it locally. And so I'd won it there, and the prize is you get a ticket to the thing. And once I got there, I was just thinking, I'm just going to have a good time now because I didn't expect to win it. I thought we were just there. So I started, I'm not a big drinker, but I hit the Budweisers pretty hard in Memphis with a few of the other musicians. I was turning up for jams. I was just hanging out, I made great friends in the time I was there.
Waving the Aussie flag.
Yeah. And, of course, they think we're exotic, especially in places like Memphis. You open your mouth with your exotic Australian accent. They're like, hey, man, where are you from? I hear you got an accent. So it's a really weird and wonderful place to hang out.
Glad you came back, rejoining the Screaming Jets to replace Izzy. But in between all of that, 20 albums other than those with the Jets. I think I lost count at about 20.
I would have played on 20 of other people's albums probably over the years, but I think I've released about, I've got one in front of me, To the Moon, so I released 15, the 15th album I've come up with, and I've done a couple of blues roulette, so there's about 17 records that I've made outside the band.
That's a great body of work. Congratulations.
Thank you. They're not all good, but hey, I did them anyway.
You are listening to Still Rocking It, the podcast with Cheryl Lee.
Let's have one of Jimmy's blues songs from his album, Jimi Hocking and Rebecca Davey, live at the Royal Standard. Here is The Golden Rule. Back to speak to Jimmy about the Jets after this.
Keep your shoes on your feet. Keep your hat on your head. Keep your shoes on your feet. Keep your hat on your head. Oh yeah. 2, 3, 4. Oh well now, little Isabel wanna shake some down. shoes on your feet. Your hat on your head. Nice feathers, by the way.
Is this the last one, the 2021 album, To the Moon So Blue?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I was kind of putting that record together over a long period of time. Really, the theme of the record is a bit depressing in some ways because it was about loss. I'd lost a dear friend and a couple along the way over a few years, my dad. And so I took it kind of hard. And what I do is I just write ideas, and it's a cathartic process, you know. So I had done that, but I looked at the body of work that I assimilated for like 6 or 7 years, and I thought there's some nice things on here, but it's all a bit sad. So I decided to come up with a few more light-hearted ideas, which was part of the Jimi the Human ethos, and I kind of mixed up the album, and I was happier with a more balanced set of songs. So that's what I've got, and you know, I really do like what's on that record, you know, but I didn't do much about launching it. Now, the problem was I finished it sort of during lockdown, and there was nowhere to play. We weren't doing anything, so I kind of did it as an exercise to release something in that period. So
because writing and playing music can be really cathartic, can't it? It probably helped you through that tough time, losing your dad. And what I loved was the connection with the album cover that, of course, your bandmate, Scotty Kingman, who's a pretty keen photographer, took the photo of that moon, and that was when your father passed away.
Moon.
I know, right?
I know, and it was because he's a great photographer. He's a very talented guy, and he was just doing like a series of photos, I think, to entertain himself, and he came up with that shot. It was actually my sister that noticed it. She said, you know, that Scotty has a shot of the moon the night that Dad passed. And I was like, no, I didn't realise that. It was a full moon or a blood moon or something, you know. So that became the cover.
Beautiful album with some beautiful songs. Better move on before you have to leave me. I said earlier you are a busy, busy man, because I was looking at the Jets schedule, and as if that's not enough, in between there you've got a gig with them for instance on the 4th and 5th, and then you went off, did your own thing on the 6th at the Rising Sun, the 11th at Zook's place. Do you not ever sit still?
No, I used to be worse. I used to, like, if I had a gap in a weekend, I'd be worried that my career was over, you know, so I'd quickly put something together. I've got young kids and stuff now. They're both in school now, but I've slowed down a little bit. But there's some things that in many ways, they're good to maintain anyway, because they're things that I'll do in between tours, and I don't want to let it go altogether. You know, if a little guitar festival's coming up in Ballarat, I'll be getting the early flight back from Sydney to make sure I can drive there and do that. That's in a couple of weeks. And, you know, I'm a player, you know, I still love to play, you know, even with all the challenges I may have, you know, it's still my thing.
The Jets, you've released the first single off the new album. I've played it to death on the radio. People are ringing up saying, stop. No, they're not.
So I think the second one's just come out. I think we've now got 2. The second one's just come as well.
Oh, how exciting. And I ordered my red vinyl online. I'm very excited.
It's hard to believe how back vinyl is. You know, when we did the last, in lockdown, we re-released the anniversary edition of the All for One album, which we re-recorded. We were the number 1 vinyl album in the country at the time. Like, vinyl. It's like...
Yeah. Yeah, I got it. It's purple.
Yeah. I mean, it's awesome, you know. Like, but you'd never thought in a million years that was going to be so full circle, you know.
Offer me vinyl, I'm in. Offer me a coloured vinyl, I'll take 2.
That's right. I'm all about it.
Then the whole album's coming out. Is it the 6th?
Yeah, it's early October. I do know that.
Watch this space. You can pre-order it online like me. Still Rocking It podcast with that radio chick, Cheryl Lee. Here it is, first single off the new album, Professional Misconduct, Nothing to Lose. Back to wrap it up with Jimi the Human shortly.
Lay back conversations, he and her. Nothing said, no one heard a word. A line of all just wrecked and zigzag. Red sack stooge holding the bag. No time to think, I gotta burn a jag. What have I done? What can I do? Can we work it out? Got nothing to lose. Dialed up and sliding south. Intravenous near my mouth. My way in is your way out. No win, no prize. The commissar rejects his demise. Inside the inside, they're so full of lies. What have I done? What can I do? Can we work it out? Oh, tell me now. Now. What have I done? And what can I do? Can we work it out? What's in it for you? I don't want it, I don't need to be anyone other than me. What you get is what you see. What I have done, what I can do, I've worked it out. I've got nothing for you. I fought and I survived. I am so alive. I got it all worked out. I got nothing for you.
The exciting news that I woke up to on all the socials this morning, apart from the tour that's going with the vinyl, get onto the Googleometer and check out the dates that the Jets are coming to you. As an Adelaide girl, obviously I'm so excited because you're coming to our race.
Yeah, I've got it all in my diary. Like the baby animals, I think it is, and us.
Yeah.
And so,
Ice House.
yeah, that's right, yeah. So that'll be great fun, you know. I actually really love Adelaide. In the old touring days, Adelaide was a sleepy town, you know, some years ago. But now, every time I go to Adelaide, you know, I walk up the mall and stuff like that, and there's always like really good young buskers, and there's more coffee shops, and like it seems like it's taken a real leap in the arts and in just the general vibe. It sounds a bit corny to say that, but there's just a lot going on now in Adelaide. I really enjoy being there.
It's a good spot.
Yeah, absolutely it is.
I think the next time I see you guys is next month at the ski club in Darwin.
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
So I'll see you down the front there. Have I got time for two more quick questions?
Yep.
I'd like to know what Jimi the Human listens to when he's alone in his car and whatever he wants in the CD stacker.
No one wants to know that. It's just going to disappoint people because they're going to think I'm going to say Black Sabbath and Jimi Hendrix or something.
Mariah
And,
Carey?
Which one?
Mariah Carey?
No, I don't have a large collection of Mariah records. Nothing wrong with her. But I go through phases of really different things. And I think when I started playing more blues shows, I really started to look for the original source of some of the music that we are now playing. So I really love old records. It's a cliche, I know, but I listen to lots of old blues records. I love T-Bone Walker. I love B.B. King. You know, they're the records I listen to a lot. Then I love old jazz records, you know, Herb Ellis, Barney Kessel, those kind of players, Joe Pass. I know they're not great rock examples. I was obsessed with Les Paul as a kid. But I listen to Neil Young records. I listen to, and then if I go through a rock phase, I want to put Thin Lizzy on. I still put AC/DC records on. You know, they're still, to me, the blueprint of how to make a great rock record. You know, I still turn up and go, have you heard that riff, riff raff? It's like, listen to the way they've mixed it. Like, we still dissect those ideas.
Yeah.
You know, they're still there, and I love ZZ Top. I like the old recordings before the 80s remixes, those boxy sounding records they made in that studio in Texas. I mean, they're just, to me, if I could make a blues record that sounded like that, I'd be happy. Like that sounds how it should be to me.
Yes.
They're probably good constants. I bought the Fleetwood Mac, the old Peter Green Fleetwood Mac collection a little while ago, and I listening to that. Even though it's without the politics, I still love albums like Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah.
So they're still things I listen to on long drives, And people send me newer albums of up-and-coming blues artists, which I listen to. There's a lot of good stuff coming up. People are making good records, but often, they don't have people like your good self in their lives who are supporting some of those things. And it's hard for them to get heard. So I'm encouraged by the amount of young musicians who are still creatively and actively writing and recording music. It's amazing, actually.
It is. I'm also an interviewer here on our Channel 44, and, maybe one day when you guys are in Adelaide, you might sit down and let me have a chat with you. What I usually ask, the last question, which I thought I might ask you because it would be interesting, do you have a non-negotiable that you have to have on your rider, you or the band, like
I wish.
Blue Smarties or something?
Well, riders are pretty standard. You get a bunch of beer. We get a bottle of Jack Daniel in the band. That's like one of our extra things we always get. Everyone likes to have a Jack. Me, I'm not so mad on it. I've been trying to change that to Fireballs, but anyway, that's just me. We get a cheese platter usually, but often, and this is becoming a point of contention with me, pubs will provide us with a cheese platter, so thank you, but they won't provide us with crackers. So they give us cheese and all this stuff, and then no crackers to put it on. Like, so there's a block of brie cheese. It's like, well, what do they think we're going to do with that? Pick it up like a donut and eat it? So I'm starting to say that if we don't get crackers, there's going to be trouble.
That absolutely has to be a non-negotiable. You must have crackers with your cheese.
And it comes on like, where are the crackers? What do they think we're going to do? Well, we're Vikings. But I used to have, my part of the rider used to be, Dave back in the day he wanted a new pair of rugby socks on the rider, and he often got them. I wanted a pack of biscuits, either chocolate teddy bears or tiny teddies. It was also a way to see if they were reading the rider, like it was a test.
Are they paying attention?
Van Halen stories was actually a test to see if they were looking at the details,
Yeah.
There was one girl, Karen, who was a big fan of the Jets, and she worked at Arnott's, and she would often come to the gig. She heard on an interview me talking about biscuits, and she would throw packets of biscuits up on the stage for me from work. So I wish she'd do it again, but she's over it now anyway.
You must be a pretty fit fella, the way you jump around on that stage. Well, looking forward to seeing you jumping around pretty soon. Thanks again for coming into the Zoom room, talking to us today.
Thanks for having a chat. Nice to be on. For
people to go and check out Jimi the Human music.
Well, it's my name, so it's, of course, all the W's, JimiHocking.com, and that's spelled JimiHocking, like Jimi Hendrix, because I'm like him, obviously.
Of course. Thank you so much for that. We'll see you down the front.
Oh, yeah, no worries. Great to have a chat. Thank you so much for having me on. See ya.
You are listening to Still Rocking It, the podcast with Cheryl Lee.
I know you think I'm going to go out with the Screaming Jets' second single from the Professional Misconduct album, but you're going to have to go and buy it because I want to go out with one of Jimmy's favourites. They're all great. Neil Young, Thin Lizzy, Akka Daka, but I'm in the mood for some ZZ Top. She's got legs. You're with Cheryl Lee, that radio chick. Thank you so much for joining me on the Still Rocking It podcast. Hope to catch you again next time. Get out when you can, support Aussie music, and I'll see you down the front.